like he goes to he needs to make headway on one point or another. Effective with respect to his political base. It's very clear that they are mobilized. They are very encouraged and enthusiastic about the president. Not if you're trying to speak to undecided voters or voters who might, for example, wonder what will the next 4 years look like in a Trump presidency. I've made the argument repeatedly that I think strongest if he was willing to get out there and talk about his plan for the next 4 years as opposed to all of these other things. But that hasn't been where the president, it hasn't been where been. I think the president believes it is effective at mobilizing his base, but his base is going to be supporting him regardless. The question now is where he gets the additional support necessary to get him across 270 electoral votes. I don't think that the strategy we've seen pursued thus far is frankly going to be very effective if that is the ultimate goal. So I think that the president and the Trump campaign have a fundamental decision to make with less than 2 weeks left. And that is, are they going to speak to voters who haven't made up their minds, or are they going to speak to those who probably are already going to support the president and try and gin them up even more?
In our final minutes, Lanhee, I want to ask you about where you see Joe Biden's biggest vulnerabilities. You know, you have President Trump bringing a guest tonight who is a business partner of Hunter Biden. He's been attempting to push, as you know, these debunked allegations of fraudulent activities by the Biden. Lanhee, look at the landscape now. You have Amy Coney Barrett on the verge of confirmation, it appears, as a Supreme Court justice. What is your take on those areas that the president should be focusing in? When you look at Joe Biden's vulnerabilities as well, what are those areas that you see as places where the president should focus his efforts?
It's a line of attack, Elaine, very similar to what we saw from Mike Pence in his debate against Kamala Harris a few weeks ago. And that is to try and tag Joe Biden as a liberal, out-of-touch progressive whose policies will take America in a fundamentally bad direction when it comes in particular to the economy. So I think one imperative is to tie his opponent to the far progressive left from a policy perspective. You saw him try to do that, for example, in Pennsylvania the other day, talking about opposition to fracking. And then in the second order, I would say it's also going to be important for him to draw contrast in terms of, and that's going to be something, you know, it's a hard sell because I think a lot of people know Joe Biden has a lot of experience in government, but it is fundamentally about that competency. For 47 years, Joe Biden's been in public life. You've heard this line, and he hasn't gotten a whole lot accomplished. It's about contrasting the president's accomplishments over the last few years with those of Vice President Biden during his 47 years in public life. I think trying to paint Joe Biden as an element of Washington, from Washington, you know, we are still in a political cycle where outsiders are favored to a certain degree. I think those are going to be the strongest places for the president to go. Whether he actually gets there, whether he can be successful, we'll have to see.
All right, Lanhee Chen. Lanhee, always great to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elaine.
Coming up, new rules for cutting off the candidates' microphones help or hurt the candidates. Former senior advisor to Hillary Clinton, Philippe Reines, will be here to give us his take. Stay with us. You're streaming Red and Blue.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now!
We got something crazy.
Oh!
And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
It's the most vulnerable and hardest hit by COVID.
Yeah, the more we lose our elders to COVID-19, the more we lose our language and our way of life.
We need to bring awareness to the attention of Washington, D.C. and United States citizens that there is a need to focus on the first citizens of this country.
In 60 years, we went from about 100%
100,000 factory workers to probably about 7,000.
Off in the distance, you can see some factories that are still humming, but most of them are just kind of abandoned.
The restaurant industry right now is one of the largest, continues to be the absolute low. It's literally a slave wage. I don't remember growing up like this. My mom didn't have to go to food banks. It's pretty sad.
Even really young kids are feeling what's going on right now. How should parents be talking to them about this whole...
Get local news, breaking in Los Angeles, streaming 24/7.
You can watch CBSN 24/7.
About this, where the rules are.
Was Joe Biden on his way? Rules is cutting the microphone of the candidate not speaking in order to ensure no interruptions. It will go into effect at the beginning of each 15-minute. State and senior advisor to Hillary Clinton, Philippe Reines, joins me now to talk more about what we can expect tonight.
Backfire for a simple reason. The debate is in 6 15-minute segments, and the person not speaking will not be able to be heard. The problem is, if you tell someone that for 4 minutes that they have to behave, you're telling them, but for the other, railing against Joe Biden, who was impeached over this. So, he's in the predicament he is with 11. Fighting
the coronavirus, of course, is one of the topics tonight. And while campaigning in Philadelphia last night, former President Obama slammed the Trump administration's.
They used it to, prop up a wobbly table somewhere.
I think, if Kristen welcomed him on specifics about, did you have pneumonia? When did the last time you test? That might be a more effective way to do it, but I'm not exactly sure that that's what's on the... And if he does what he did last time about saying that the Obama administration and Joe Biden, no one handles him or gets skin more. Cells feel confident. Look, I was wrong 4 years ago. That we've had two things since. One, we've had 2018, which did not go well.
Vice President Joe Biden.
For fear, unity over division, science over fiction, truth over lies. We are going to keep on fighting. We are going to keep on winning. This is the most important election in the history of our country.
Good evening. I'm Norah O'Donnell in the nation's capital with John Dickerson and Gayle King. In just a few minutes, the presidential candidates will face off for the final time. Every one of the swing states that will determine the election now.
President, as you remember, the second debate was canceled when Mr. Trump balked at a virtual.
While one candidate is answering a direct question for 2 minutes, the other candidates might have held his debate prep in spaces between multiple campaign rallies this week.
There's so much at stake. We want to bring in Nicole Killian. She is inside the debate hall in Nashville. Good evening, Nicole.
And lay out his agenda. They view this debate as a test of presidential temperament and say Biden is prepared for whatever comes his way. They do. It's going to backfire. Biden told reporters today he hopes the president plays by the rules. Norah?
All right, let's bring in CBS's Paula Reed because she covers the White House and President Trump. Paula?
Good evening, Norah. President to let his opponent, Norah.
All right, Paula Reed, we are just moments away, and John Dickerson, can anything that happens tonight change the trajectory of this race?
Well, it's the last moment of the race that is guaranteed to have a huge viewership. If it can, tonight's the night.
All right.
Tonight's the night.
All right.
20 presidential debate between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. All has promised to remain silent. No cheers, boos, or other interruptions, except right now, as we welcome to the stage former Vice President Joe Biden. And I do want to say a very good evening to both of you. This debate will cover 6 major topics. Their microphone only when it is they both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with you. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage?
Modeled out, we're expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. There was a very big spike in Texas. Have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine. I can tell you from personal experience that I was in the hospital. I had it, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune. Whether it's 4 months or a lifetime, nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. We've done in terms of going away.
Okay, former Vice President Biden, to you, how would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, remain as President of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, their expectation is we'll have another advisor that told them we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far has no mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing, investing in rapid testing. I would make sure that we set up a national standard where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole crisis, has been absolutely tragic.